For decades, Iran has been working with communist China and Russia to destabilize America as well as other Western civilizations. Regardless, past presidents and world leaders have continued to capitulate to the tyrannical Islamic regime of Iran. Yet Iran was not always this way. In fact, prior to 1979, they were considered an American ally. But after the revolution occurred, the resulting Islamic Republic of Iran has been organizing and sponsoring terrorism throughout the Middle East as well as Western societies, with Hezbollah and Hamas as their warriors. But this is not just history. This is a warning for America as an Islamic revolution is occurring right now in our own cities, and we're about to lose them. I have some massive truth bombs for you today, starting with if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. And my friends, we're there. So here's my 2 cents. I've been researching this video for about a week, and I realized to make sense of what is occurring now, we have to take a look at some of Iran's history, which goes back thousands of years. Known as Persia, there was a time when its rulers were friendly to the Jewish people. Ezra and 2nd Chronicles record Persian ruler Cyrus the Great conquering Babylon in 539 BC and freeing the exiled Jews. He allowed them to return to Jerusalem and start rebuilding the temple. Darius the Great reaffirmed the decree to rebuild the temple and even helped fund it. Persian King Xerxes is recorded in the book of Esther as Ahasuerus and helped save the Jews, an event they still celebrate today known as Purim. Also, scholars believe the Magi, who followed the star to find Jesus, were from Persia. Persia fell to Alexander the Great in 330 BC, but rose again before being completely conquered and overthrown by Arab Muslims in 651 AD. Native non-Arabian citizens gradually converted to Islam, possibly under distress. However, the rich Persian history and culture remained in the region. In 1501 AD, Shah Ismail I made 12-verse Shia Islam Persia's official state religion, which believes in a succession of imams, with the 12th one being their Messiah. Unfortunately, their Messiah's description perfectly matches that of the Antichrist, and they believe he is alive right now. But to bring about this 12th imam's rise to power and reign, the world must be washed in the blood of infidels or non-Muslims. Fast forward to 1921, when military officer Reza Khan conducted a coup, crowned himself Shah 4 years later, and changed his name to Reza Shah Pahlavi. He immediately began modernizing Persia, including declaring Iran its official name in 1935. The non-Arab, Indo-European speaking, or Aryan Persians were already using Iran and Iranian to describe themselves in addition to Persian. So the Shah made the change to modernize the country. Some proposed he embrace the Aryan term to show support for Hitler, but Persians were using the term long before Hitler adopted it in his regime. Now, during World War II, in September of 1941, Britain and the Soviet Union invaded Iran to secure oil supplies and supply lines for the USSR. At the time, they forced Reza Shah to abdicate his throne to his 21-year-old son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and flee in exile. After a short exile himself in 1953 due to another coup, America and Britain restored the son to power and fostered an alliance with the Middle East leader. Despite still being a dictatorial ruler, Western nations realized the importance of an ally in the region during the Cold War, especially as communist Russia was actively working on encroaching on the country and trying to take control of their oil so as to gain power. While there is much to criticize of the Shah's reign, he did continue his father's modernization of Iran and was willing to work with America and Britain on economic issues. Western values, including women's and minorities' rights, were fostered. However, they did not sit well with the country's 12er Shia Islamic clerics. Despite their freedoms, a movement grew throughout the country in the 1960s and 70s, cultivated by those Islamic clerics, including exiled Ayatollah Khomeini, that pushed against the Shah's pro-American and pro-Western values. During the late 1970s, the winds of revolution swept Iran, Protesters against the Shah included middle-class liberals who wanted political and economic reform, as well as Communist Party members and militant Islamic fundamentalists, including some radical students. Sound familiar? Satan doesn't need new tricks when the old ones keep working. When the Shah fled Iran in exile in January of 1979, the Ayatollah Khomeini returned, seizing the opportunity and the government officially taking control on April 1st. He quickly declared Iran an Islamic republic, nullifying their constitution, and he made Sharia law the supreme law of the land. He also continued his attack on America, increasing his rhetoric that it was the great Satan. With Ayatollah Khomeini's return, many in the opposition still assumed that his leadership in a post-Shah Iran would be largely spiritual and symbolic, while a coalition of former resistance parties would govern. Instead, Khomeini and his allies quickly pushed to create a republic that would be solely guided by Islamic teaching and controlled by those who understood the religion best, the clerics. Some fundamentalist Iranian students wanted the Shah returned for prosecution. He was in America seeking medical treatment, so they invaded the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking the 66 Americans inside hostage. This occurred exactly 1 year to the day before the 1980 presidential election between Jimmy Carter and Ron Reagan. Many contribute this crisis an appearance of American weakness to Carter and therefore his loss. The hostages were held until Reagan was sworn in on January 20th, 1981. Pictures of Iran pre-1979 show people living in a modern Western-like community. Women already had amazing freedoms for decades, including voting and religious rights, jobs, and standing in society. They could marry who they wanted, when they wanted, and dress in fashionable clothing. That all changed in 1979 when the secular Western-aligned Pahlavi monarchy was replaced with a theocratic Islamic state dominated by Shia principles. The Ayatollah actually kept the most extreme Twelver Islamists at bay, but that all ended upon his death on June 3, 1989. The following day, the Assembly of Experts elected Ali Khamenei, the Iranian's president, as the new supreme leader. Under his direction, the country moved from an Islamic governance model of charismatic clerical dominance to a more institutionalized theocracy. This Islamic takeover in Iran was the inspiration for the woke leftist holy book, The Handmaid's Tale. But blue-haired white liberals honestly believe it describes Trump's Christian paradise. In reality, Trump just liberated real-life handmaids, yet TDS sufferers continue to call Trump the dictator and warmonger. They have no clue those signature red dresses they dress up in protest actually represent the full hijabs women are forced to wear in Islamic Sharia law-run areas, the same areas they stand side by side with in protests. Less than 2 years ago, a woman protesting the Islamic regime's oppression dared to remove her headdressing in public. She was whipped 74 times by authorities for her insubordination. Where was the left then? In late 2023, the Ayatollah told his citizens that death to America was not a slogan or a chant. It was the country's official policy toward the United States. Trump tried seeking an agreement with them regarding nuclear weapons, but when your holy book demands you bring death to your enemies at all costs, you don't want to negotiate. You want full annihilation. Iran was not going to stop until America, Israel, and Europe were bombed into extinction. 80% of 77,000 Iranians surveyed want an end to the Islamic State, and President Trump is giving them that opportunity. Yet woke white liberals and Democrat politicians think they know better than the people of Iran what is better for them. So much for democracy and the will of the people. I'm not trying to determine what was right and what was wrong in all this history. I'm bringing it up as a warning to what is happening right now in the United States and Europe and all Western cultures. God is giving us a gift. He's letting us see history in real time and a chance to do things differently. We're living in Iran 1978 right now, especially in places like Detroit, New York, Minneapolis, and Dallas, with the same actors pushing it. middle-class liberals, Communist Party members, and militant Islamic fundamentalists, as well as radical students, are again encouraged to demand policy changes. We've seen Antifa and extremist students in the streets waving Black Lives Matter flags, a Marxist organization, LGBTQ plus flags, also Marxist, Ukrainian flags, Palestinian flags, Mexican flags, and any other flag that goes against Western civilization in America. Meanwhile, Muslims are infiltrating local governments, taking steps to implement Sharia law over the Constitution, and build Muslim-only cities. They even descended on Times Square, blocking streets to pray during Ramadan as people are forced to endure the call to prayer 5 times a day. Relying on the tolerance and compassion of Americans, they're slowly overturning 250-year-old policies and traditions. Headdressings are now allowed, and politicians are being sworn in to office on Qurans. Woke liberal LGBTQ plus advocates and cohorts happily spit on our Judeo-Christian Western values too, to further what they believe is their combined agenda with Islamists performing their swearing in on pornography. Handmaid's Tale's red robe-wearing champions are actually donning hijabs, believing they're fighting against President Trump's oppression of women, completely oblivious to the fact that the hijab is that exact tyranny. In fact, instead of recognizing the obvious, leftists utterly melt down when it is laid out right in front of them. What these Marxist imbeciles don't realize, though, is once the overthrow is complete, Sharia law will condemn them to elimination as well. They honestly think they are working together to oust a common enemy, bringing forth a utopia in which they will live peacefully side by side. However, Islamists see them as useful idiots, no better than dirty dogs, and will be treated as such once they are in power. While it is disguised as tolerance and solidarity, we are without a doubt setting the stage for an Islamic state in America. But here's the worst part about it. Our own government, including some of our presidents, helped Iran and us get to this point. Just before leaving office, President Obama transferred $1.7 billion to Iran in cash without a peep from Congress. Not to mention the nuclear deal he made with them that allowed Iran to continue their program as long as they kept it peaceful. Their unwavering policy towards us is death to America. Why would you trust them to remain peaceful? Then Joe Otto Penn Biden waived sanctions Trump placed on Iran, unfreezing a total of $16 billion in funds. While he didn't technically give Iran money like Obama did, he did provide them access to billions of dollars Trump had frozen, putting us in the predicament we're in today. Obama always displayed his affection for Islamic and Muslim nations. The media just downplayed it. Shortly after taking office, Obama gave a speech in Turkey in April of 2009, stating that Americans do not consider ourselves a Christian nation or a Muslim nation, but rather a nation of citizens who are, bound by a set of values. Anyone paying close attention knows Islamists, including ones in America, excuse child grooming, trafficking, and sexual assault. Punishment for Sharia law violations and honor unalivings. As Islamic practices often clash with Christians and their beliefs, I'm not really sure what values Obama thinks are binding us together. A week later, Obama gave a speech at a Catholic university. He covered up the Christian symbols behind him. Do you honestly think he would have done that if they were Muslim symbols? In a 2014 statement celebrating the end of Ramadan, Obama wrote the event reminds us of the many achievements and contributions of Muslim Americans to building the very fabric of our nation and strengthening the core of our democracy. In 2015, he stated that here in America, Islam has been woven into the fabric of our country since its founding. What? Does he mean because the Muslim Barbary pirates were blackmailing and extorting our nation from the beginning in exchange for safety, while also attacking, kidnapping, and enslaving our sailors, forcing our founders to muster a navy and eventually go to war? In a letter to John Jay in 1786, Jefferson wrote about what he and John Adams learned about Islam's motivation for the unprovoked attacks from the ambassador of Tripoli. The ambassador answered us that it was founded in the laws of their prophet, that it was written in their Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them whenever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim or Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise. George Washington's reply to the ambassador's statement was, "Would to heaven we had a navy able to reform these enemies of mankind or crush them into non-existence." In 1796, Washington called for Congress to form the Navy, which was created 2 years later under President John Adams. President Jefferson refused to pay the blackmail money, and despite adamantly not wanting to go to war, did so knowing they considered America a Christian nation, which their holy book demanded they conquer. Jefferson suggested people read the Quran not in solidarity or as a religious text, but to understand the enemy we faced. He knew they would not stop until one of us were completely overthrown. He was not wrong, as here we are today, still fighting the exact same ideology 250 years later. Let me be clear. There are Muslims that wish to quietly practice their religion and live peacefully with their non-Muslim neighbors. It is the Islamic extremists of the faith, like the Ayatollah, who believe it is their right, no, their duty to cover the world with the blood of infidels. It is how they can bring their utopia to earth. Yet, while there are peaceful Muslims, there are clerics, who are often extremists, preach that to be a good Muslim, they must reject the infidels. Imams here in America are calling the Ayatollah a martyr, the man who executed his own people for speaking out against him, especially for destroying women's rights. Notice who this particular imam is friends with. The same people encouraging the protests here against Trump and his administration. The truth is, the powers that be don't want you to know this history because if you did, you wouldn't be a useful idiot for them anymore. Protesters call Trump a fascist and demand his demise because 2 protesters recently lost their lives in Minnesota. During the State of the Union address, sitting Representative Ilhan Omar, a Somali Muslim, shouted multiple times that Trump unalived American citizens, despite evidence revealing their deaths were a result of their own actions. When protests broke out in Iran against the government, the Ayatollah rounded up and eliminated about 30,000 of them. Hearing the Iranians' cries, Trump took action after multiple warnings. But who do the professional protesters blame? Trump, of course. Always. These people are not genuine or organic. They are paid and organized to push a narrative, not to take an honest stand. Listen to what else Obama has said.
You're absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that that has not
Christian
come
faith.
My Christian faith. And well, what I'm saying is that he hasn't suggested that I'm a Muslim.
People have been drawn to Islam's message of peace, and the very word itself, Islam, comes from salam, peace. The standard greeting is assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Islam is rooted in a commitment to compassion and mercy, and justice and charity. Whoever wants to enter paradise, the Prophet Muhammad taught, let him treat people the way he would love to be treated. The first word revealed in the Quran, Ikra, means read, to seek knowledge, to question assumptions.
Wonder if he can quote the Bible passages in Christian history that well. Looking at Obama's statements and considering the evidence that is now starting to surface regarding his ties to Muslim Brotherhood, CARE, and other Islamic organizations, as well as the billions of our tax dollars he just quietly gave to Iran, can we now start putting some of the pieces of the puzzle together here? Did we have a Muslim refugee problem before 2009? Were Muslims inundating communities, infiltrating local and federal governments, and implementing no-go zones ruled by their own police forces and Sharia law? Were politicians bending over backwards to coddle Muslim immigrants, manipulating rules to claim they were legal, handing out entitlements like candy as they sacrificed the safety and well-being of actual American citizens, all while taking their tax dollars to do it before 2009? But it's not just occurring here. In fact, it's even worse in England, Germany, and France, as Muslims institute Sharia law communities while grooming gangs are ignored by authorities out of fear of being called Islamophobic, a term specifically designed to prevent criticism. Muslims are pandered to as their victims are punished for speaking out against those assaulting them. How is this not brutally obvious to everyone? The same people who demand equality for women, minorities, and LGBTQ+ individuals, reject religious domination, and support socialism and Marxism are literally handing over their countries to people who want to force citizens under Sharia law, reduce women to the status of servant or slave, making a handmaid's tale a living reality, and will eradicate homosexualities and Marxist advocates when they are done with them. I can't believe anymore this is by ignorance or carelessness. This is a coordination by the Marxist puppet masters to destroy Western civilization. The problem is they think once societies fall, they will implement their agenda and put the Islamists in line. Didn't they think the same thing in Iran in 1979? Like it or not, we are founded on Judeo-Christian principles. Our government, legal system, and culture were structured on the Ten Commandments and other Christian values. If Islamists have a problem with that to the point they are relentless in their objective to eliminate infidels across the world, believing they will obtain paradise if they die themselves in the mission, then I'm willing to allow my president to help them achieve that goal, even if that means taking preemptive actions. I don't know what's going to happen in other countries, but America is not too late to save. Our predicament could not be more obvious. We can either capitulate to those crying Islamophobia until we are forced to wear hijabs and pray to Mecca 5 times a day, or we can stand up for our way of life, our history, and our Constitution. Drawing the line in the sand, either assimilate to our culture or go somewhere else. This is not Islamophobia. This is survival, and even more importantly, freedom. But that's just my 2 cents. But what do you think? Leave your comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoy my content, please consider supporting my work on Patreon. You can find all my videos on my blog, Liberating Letters, at thefaxpaper.com. You can also start your own research on the Facts Paper by exploring the thousands of links to articles I have, including those noted in my videos. Sharing the truth fake news propagandists won't. Investigate and discover the truth for yourself.